What is up, team? Nala here. I wanted to talk to you about Grimrail Depot challenge mode. So Grimrail was incredibly short. We finished it in about 13 minutes, which was I think our quickest time in any challenge mode, but mostly just because the dungeon itself is so much faster than everything else. And given that it's so much faster, you'd think it would be a lot more stressful, but it isn't that bad. So our strategy for Grimrail was to ignore the entire first room. We popped invis pots out the gate. Our mage just popped regular invis, and we ran to the end. For mob count purposes, this was a little bit sketchy because we had to kill this, mark him with a star, this overseer. Now, this overseer is friendly because you can pull him all alone, and all you need is one mob. So you have to kill, literally have to kill every mob on the train. And so when you add up all the mobs on the train, you're one short. So go ahead and make sure you pull one mob here, and you can pull 2 or 3 if you really have to, but we went ahead and just pulled the Overseer because you could pull them alone and they don't have that much health. So we pull the Overseer here, and then basically as soon as he does his second dash, we pull the boss. So we don't have to worry about pre-pot anymore because we used our invis pots. And so as soon as we used our invis pots, we immediately just get to stop caring about potting. So the one thing that you have to be careful about, and that I was not good at, is getting nature locked. Now, I have just enough fire spells to keep me tided over between those locks, so I'm able to maintain a little bit of damage, but I definitely took a big DPS hit. As you saw at the beginning there, I was only pulling about 14k because I was missing... Windows is yelling at me. Because I was missing just basic damage that I shouldn't have been. So the strategy for this fight is to hold your cooldowns, hold hero, hold everything until you get to the first, I believe it's Mad Dash. Now Mad Dash is a spell that Borka the Brute casts, and you have to have your tank point Borka at Railmaster Rocket Spark, the little goblin flying around and casting things at people. And the reason for this, and the reason that you're holding cooldowns, is because when Borka mad dashes and hits Railmaster Rocket Spark, knocking him off the barrel, Railmaster Rocket Spark actually takes 100% increased damage for a few brief seconds there. Now, Borka's very easy to kill because you can stay on him the entire time now, but the disadvantage of this fight is that Railmaster Rocket Spark is actually immune to damage when he's standing on boxes. So as soon as he comes down and you can deal your full damage to him, you want to go ahead and make sure that you're doing that. Now, we're able to cheese Railmaster Rocket Spark's final phase, so we were totally fine nuking down Borka. If you grounding totem, all of these individual rockets actually count as one spell, Rocket Barrage. So if you wait a couple seconds, once he finds a better position at the beginning, as soon as he starts channeling whatever the ability is, Rocket Barrage, if you drop a grounding totem, none of your party will take damage, and all of the damage that Railmaster Rocket Spark does is actually reflected back at him. So after you've killed Rocket Spark and Borka, which take a little bit of time because they both have a pretty decent amount of health, Borka especially, you're able to go ahead and just start your way up these stairs. Now, we have all range DPS, and if you haven't learned yet, it's kind of like cheating from watching the other videos. And it's cheating because we can do things like stand 5 miles behind our tank and not have to worry about things like double slash ever kiting onto us, or any of the rockets that he and our healer are having to dodge because they're doing all sorts of crazy things up there. We just get to stand down here at the bottom and turret like the good little cannons that we are. So this phase is a lot more difficult if you try and pull all 3 bombardiers together. What we did is we went ahead and pulled the first bombardier up to the second bombardier, fought on the ramp. As soon as the first bombardier was dead, we pulled the second bombardier up to the third bombardier. By the time we got to the third bombardier, the second bombardier was usually dead because of just passive dot cleave. Now at that point, you want to have your fastest person, who's the furthest along, run to the point that teleports everyone to the trains, because no matter where you are in the instance, once someone hits that point, you get teleported into train land. So we had our Resto Druid save Displacer Beast for this express purpose, and as soon as that gate opened up, he displacered and we were already on the train. Saves you a couple seconds. It's a good little time gain. So once you're on the train, things get chaotic, and this is the trademark of the dungeon, trains. So the main mobs you have to watch out for in here are Gunners, who cast an ability called Shrapnel Blast, Boomers, who throw grenades at the ground and cast Black Rock Mortar, and Gromkar Cinder Seers. Cinder Seers put a big AoE fire thing on the ground that will slowly lock up the room. And as the train rooms are already very, very small, this is bad. So our strategy for this was to focus gunners over Cinder Seers over boomers. Now boomers are annoying because we had a mage and a shaman who both need to cast, because gimp caster classes. And so the knockback from the boomers would function as an interrupt sometimes, but this was mostly avoidable for us. Now, the other mechanic that Cinder Seers have that prioritizes them above boomers, in addition to this large fire AoE, which you see on the ground here, which is lava spread or something along those lines, searing ground, something like that. Fire on the ground, don't stand in it, is lava wreath. Now, lava wreath is just a 14-second silence that, if you stand still, will silence you. So if you get targeted, move away from your raid or your group and keep moving until lava wreath fades, because apparently no one really knows how it works. It's a very nebulous mechanic, and in all of our attempts in this, we couldn't really figure out exactly how it worked. If you stand near other casters too long, it will spread to them, and then they get silenced. And if your healer gets targeted with lava wreath, good luck, because this is a really high damage phase. Now, this pull right here is the hardest because what you get is 2 Gromkar Gunners. Now, Gromkar Gunners reduce armor with Shrapnel Blast, and so if you are fighting them for too long, your tank will just die. So what we go ahead and do next is just cleave down the rest of the train in a pretty straightforward fashion. We had our hunter stand about where I am for most of these pulls so that she could comfortably barrage without having to worry too much about pulling more mobs. However, for this pull, that's not too much of a concern, so she just stood in her regular spot. Again, we were focusing gunners over gunners over Cinder Seers over boomers throughout the train. Once you've cleaned up the train, it's a straight shot to the next boss, Nitrog Thunder Tower. And Nitrog, see, there's Lava Wreath, there's no effect, there's no nothing, it's just, hey, you're silenced, enjoy. So if you're the unlucky caster that gets focused, have fun. So Nitrog is a very cheesable fight if you have a shaman. There is a glyph that causes your grounding totem to not only absorb damage, but also, or to not only redirect a spell, but also reflect it back at the person who cast it, similar to a Hunter's Mirrored Blades. Now, if you recall, when Nitrog reaches 70 or 65% health, he jumps up and sails across the room, or across the train car, into the cannon on the far end of the room. And at that point, you have to kill the cannon, which has an exorbitant amount of health. Now, this is aided because trash give you fun little ammunition to go ahead and kill the cannon faster, but even then it still takes a while. So this is me musing about being floating on a box. So the main things that you have to watch out for on Nitrog Thunder Tower are first Blackrock Mortar, which he just cast. He will not target, but he will turn to a random raged player and throw a successive bunch of grenades at them. And so if you don't get out of the way, you will die because this is a very small room and you will be repeatedly hit with that mechanic. So keep that in mind when you're positioning your group and make sure that you're not standing in that. The other thing to note is Suppressive Fire. Suppressive Fire is a spam interrupt, a very high damage ability that Nitrog, once he jumps into the cannon, will target a ranged member with. You want this ranged member to go ahead and stand back behind some of the pillars in the train. If you look here, I just was not paying attention, not get behind a pillar fast enough, and took a good bit of damage there. So I'm able to heal that off myself because OP hybrids, and then we were set up pretty well for the next part of the fight. So what you want to do is you want to kill boomers. Boomers are top priority on this fight. Now gunners still do the most damage, however, boomers drop Blackrock mortars, and Blackrock mortars, when you jump into the cannon, or when you jump into the cannons on the side, do a very, very large amount of fire damage to the cannon. So if you recall, we talked briefly about the Glyph of Reflect for Grounding Totem. Now, Slag Blast, which is cast on the ground by the cannon, is a very high damage magic effect. And the entire AoE, even if it's hitting multiple people, similar to the first boss, Borka, and Rocket Spark, is one spell. So you can actually reflect the entirety of Slag Blast onto the cannon. Now that puts on a very small stacking dot damage, but the important part is for every stack, the cannon takes increased fire damage. And Blackrock Mortar deals fire damage. Or Blackrock Shell, whatever it is that the boomers drop that let you fire a focused homing missile. And so that stacking damage increase means that you can one-shot the cannon. So if you noticed in our last pull, we got the cannon to about 85% just whacking it. And then we did the grounding totem trick. We got 9 stacks on the cannon. We hit it with the mortar, and it was dead, and we were just already in phase 3 of the fight, and that just makes it very, very easy. So at that point, we realized we had plenty of time here. Coming into this last car with 9 minutes and 40 seconds, we were feeling very comfortable, and so we decided to go ahead and slow this down. It didn't really work for us because it got kind of struggly, which you'll see here in a second. Now, there are a couple very dangerous mobs here. The first and foremost of which is the Gromcar Captain, which is in the back of the room there. Somehow we didn't pull him, even though he was directly talking to a mob that we attacked. It was our goal to train the Gromcar Captain, and so when he didn't aggro, we just kind of didn't really have a focus target, and the Farseer stayed up way too long. Your kill order should be Gromcar Captain over Farseers over all the other little trash that hangs around it. Now, there's a lot of just random AoE damage in here that can cause your group to wipe pretty quickly, and on a couple pulls, we actually ran into situations where people would get too many stacks of Thunderstone, Grounding Totem wouldn't work correctly, and people would just die. So we lost our Hunter here, and just took a lot of damage that we could have avoided pretty easily. And so getting down the Captain took a little bit longer. Now that said, the Captain has an exorbitantly high health pool. At full, I don't even know what it is, but at 50%, he's at about 700k, so I guess it would be 1.4 million. Math is hard. So he's about 1.4 million health, which takes a good long while to get down. And so that Captain is going to be your main sort of barrier of entry to the final boss, who, once you kill all this trash, and all of the loaders who are standing at the front of the car will come do a large bit of AoE damage toward the front of the car, so don't be there, and you're gold. So it's the only thing standing between you and that. So she's riding up there on her dragon and doing all sorts of dragon things, and we're just going ahead and rebuffing, pre-potting, and popping army. So our Death Knight goes ahead and pops army here. It was our plan to use army earlier in the train. We forgot, because we're bad, and we were able to just pop it for this boss fight. Now, there are 3 main mechanics that you have to worry about. The first of which is Freezing Snare. Don't stand in it, because if you stand in it, you get rooted. We had 4 ways to break roots, so we weren't super worried about this, especially because we had 2 Windwalk totems in case people were bad. So on the off chance that someone didn't move out of a Freezing Snare, we were okay. The second part is Diffused Energy. Diffused Energy will put a stacking debuff on you and is reflectable. So I went ahead and reflected this with Grounding Totem and learned, slowly, after a couple pulls, some of the thunder on the ground is a Thunder Zone, some of the thunder on the ground is Diffused Energy. If you are lucky and you stand in a Thunder Zone, you will reflect damage on the boss. If you are unlucky and you stand in Diffused Energy, you will reflect damage on the dragon flying around in the sky, which means nothing, because it's not part of the fight. And the final mechanic is Spinning Spear. Skylord Torva will turn into a random player and throw a spear at them. If you get hit by the spear, you will die. Don't. Just step out of the way. It's a very slow-moving projectile that you can see and just dodge. At that point, you're done. So 12 minutes, 52 seconds is overall a very, very quick dungeon. The cap for gold is 14 minutes, 30 seconds. And so we had a pretty good buffer with this instance. It was very straightforward for us. We were able to use Grounding Totem to cheese a lot of different things, namely the Rocket Barrage on the first fight and Slag Blast on the second fight. So all in all, taking it a little bit slow, and we were good to go, which just leaves us with one more Upper Blackrock Spire. So I look forward to seeing you guys next week for our video on that. Thanks. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and Nala signing off.